Hi there. I'd like to continue off the idea from my last video essay where I was talking about perfectionism and where I used to think that before I could create things, I had to just decide what kind of person I was first before even beginning that. Like if I was going to talk online or post online or start a business, my sculptures or miniatures, that I had to pick one topic and just focus on that. And honestly, I think that kept me from making anything at all. It served more as a hindrance than as motivation. I say that because we tend to put ourselves into boxes, and I would just constantly be held back when it came to starting a channel or starting a blog or any of the things I said before, because I was like, oh, I don't know what I should focus on. There's just so many different things I want to talk about. I don't want to be stuck to just one thing. And it's like, why do I have to be stuck to that? Like, who's the person deciding that? So once you kind of settle on a niche, we tend to attach that to our identity. Like, I'm the person to talk about XYZ. So, like, for example, my friends always associate me with spiders or bugs or nature or whatever, because anytime we go out, I'm always the one to point them out anywhere we go. Yet, if I'm the one to stomp on an earwig, then I'm suddenly the bug hater. And I think a lot of that attachment to identity kind of ties back into just risk itself. Like, maybe that's why these boxes feel so hard to leave once we become so accustomed to them, because once we define ourselves a certain way, trying to break outside of that can just feel dangerous. It's like, oh, I'm treading on foreign territory or foreign waters. Like, I'm not used to this is different. And really, we're scared of risk. We're scared of, say, blowing up our accounts when it comes to investing by doing the wrong thing, making the wrong choice. We're scared of embarrassing ourselves when it comes to creative pursuits and what other people might think about them. Like I mentioned in my last video, how we might choose to blame the algorithm or needing better equipment, or we could also just blame the economy or ourselves not being ready to take on a new pursuit or new project. And even though those pressures can be very real, they also help us avoid admitting that we're scared. And the more that I think about it, like, I realize it doesn't just apply to creativity or our careers, work, whatever. It just shows up in how we approach life in general. And at the end of the day, everything is very interconnected. I mean, I know it sounds silly to say that, but I think my history classes taught me that the best. Like, for example, we of course separate subjects like history, science, English, art, woodworking, whatever, to make them easier to understand. We put them in boxes. But in reality, they are always overlapping. These ideas don't just exist in isolation the way that we categorize them or how we put them into a textbook. Like with history, it's shaped by econ, which involves a lot of math, unfortunately. It involves culture, language, science, for one, and then science, on the other hand, is going to be shaped also by history, by language, and by human behavior. Even the pace in which we advance science is going to be based around that. And the problem is that I feel like we grow up believing that those categories are real boundaries with just everything, because that's, how we were taught them. And in doing so, we end up doing that with ourselves as well, where we put ourselves into these defined spaces. We try to just become one thing, one niche, one identity, or like oh, you're a doctor, but that doesn't mean you can't also be a painter. You can't also be a singer alongside that, because we're all of our interests, we're all of our experiences and thoughts, even if they don't fit cleanly into those singular identities, because those categories are just tools, they're not like absolute truths. I feel like that tendency to simplify ourselves, it shows up in what we actually choose to make and keep track of. So not just the things we do, but how we prioritize what's important to us. Because when I think about it, like, I've created a lot of different things in my life, whether it's like my cosplays or poems I've written or things I've sculpted, whatever, like plenty of different things, but I don't have a portfolio for any of them, like not even the ones that are actually like similar in nature. And it's, I feel like at times, like, a lot of them were either done on a whim, or it was like I was instructed to do them, or sometimes it's just because I forgot to even like consider the option. But even when I was finishing my teaching degree, like, my school had eliminated the senior requirement to create a lesson plan portfolio, and I was so stoked at the time. But I look back at it and I'm like, damn, like, I wish I would have just done it anyway, so I had something to look back at. But otherwise, like, things I've generally made were just made because life asked for them. You know, it's like, how many things do we actually create with intention versus in reaction to something else? You know, whether it's like a Halloween costume or a last minute birthday gift that you just want to quickly make something, or you're assigned to do a project in class or for work and make a presentation. A lot of things that we make is responsive rather than chosen, or even maybe for like a journalist, like, how many times do they get assigned to write about a story that they don't actually care about, and then they have to push aside any of the ones that they do want to write about because someone else is telling them they have to write something else. And while it would be easy to blame circumstances or a lack of structure or not knowing how, like, I always made the excuse that, like, I don't know how to make a portfolio, I don't know how to do that. It's like, part of that is just me not taking ownership and making a container for my own work. It's like, it doesn't have to necessarily be a good portfolio, it's just a matter of having things in the same place. But there's where that perfectionism kind of comes into play again, and that pattern of avoiding accountability, it doesn't just show up in those things we make, it's also showing up in just how we define what we are. So coming back to that identity, it's who we allow ourselves to be. It's like us telling ourselves, this is who you are able to be, rather than just like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. It's like, no, I'm only allowed to do XYZ because that's who I see myself as. But why is it that we treat having many interests as confusion? Or why do we feel like we have to force this coherence and congruity? What's the word? Congruence? Whatever. I think you understand the point I'm trying to get. But the point is, like, we act like not sticking to one thing is a problem. Yet humans aren't one-dimensional side characters. You know, we're not just gonna want to do the exact same thing for our entire lives with no separation from that. I mean, some people are able to do the exact same thing every single day. I can't do that. I get stir crazy so easily. It's like I don't know, it's too much. And sometimes we treat that changing interest as betrayal instead of just growth, you know? Experimenting with something new can feel threatening to, say, like a brand or something when it comes to marketing, and suddenly you're changing everything about what you're putting out there, and And that can be daunting for the audience or whoever it is that's watching. Or even when you try to change jobs, it's like all your coworkers, like, besides, the fact of like, oh, they're gonna miss you, it's like they might wonder, like, why would you even consider that? Why would you want to do something different? It's like, you're so good at this, blah 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 blah, whatever the reasoning might be. It's like that can feel like betrayal. Yet at the end of the day, in this case, it's like, this is my channel. I mean, I don't really have any videos on here anyway. I just want to talk about things, and luckily that talking about life, or whatever these ideas I talk about, like, that can encompass anything and everything. And maybe that's the real question, going back to what I was just saying, is why do we act like exploring something new means abandoning who we are? You don't have to have just one thing, because you're not just one thing. I think a lot of this comes from how rigid we've become about identity. Like, again, it's either you're a content creator, a lawyer, an activist, but why can't you be all three of them? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there are people that are, but like, it's frowned upon, especially like in the realm of like somebody that's a lawyer or some other kind of position with that huge professionalism image on them. It's like, oh, you can't be anything else. You have to focus primarily on that career. And it's like, you can still do that well and enjoy the rest of your life and do other things, but we also try to make ourselves stable and consistent and easy to define because it feels safer that way. Yet that rigidity is also what limits us. And maybe instead of building identity through, I guess what you could say, specialization or mastery, and focusing so much on that, we can just build it through curiosity. Not everything has to be permanent in order to be meaningful. Like, I worked as a career advisor for like a year and a half, and I loved working with my clients who had been all over the place, the ones that had jumped from job to job and wore a bunch of different hats. They were in positions that you would think don't connect at all. Like, you maybe see someone that was in construction, and then they were in marketing, and then they were a real estate agent, and then they're blah 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 blah, all over the place. Yet underneath all of that, you can usually trace a pattern of skills, even when nothing looks connected on the surface. And that, I think, is just as admirable as somebody that is able to be loyal to doing one thing. And it doesn't need to be this shameful thing, because I know sometimes people, or like employers, will look at that, especially in today's age, and they'll be like, oh, like, you really like can't stay in one place. It's like, why should I have to? You can follow something for a while, step away, maybe come back or change direction, and you're still the same person. You just have to give yourself permission to do that. Because I think, again, when we attach a niche to identity, and then what we end up doing is we treat changing direction like we're losing ourselves, when it's like, no, you're just trying something different, or you're just growing into a different version of yourself. That doesn't mean that you're not the same person. I feel like choosing one thing is sometimes just another way of postponing beginning. I mean, obviously it's good to focus on one thing, for that moment to get some momentum, but it doesn't mean you have to stay there forever, because a life can be cohesive without it being narrow, without having to have absolute tunnel vision for its entirety. And yeah, I feel like I said a lot of the same things over, but I don't know. I guess in summary, do whatever you want to do. And that's all.